Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about and playing some music written by a 6-year-old. Yes, you heard that right, music written by a 6-year-old child. But not just any old 6-year-old child, the most famous child genius in history, Wolfgang Mozart. I'm also going to be playing some music by his father Leopold, so you can compare the two and come to your own conclusions about what I'm going to be talking about later. Leopold Mozart was employed by the Archbishop of Salzburg for much of his career, just as Wolfgang was at a certain time as well. Leopold was employed as a composer, court composer, and also a violinist. I think it's fair to say that he was more significant and important as a violinist than he was as a composer. He wrote a very important treatise on violin playing in 1756, which is still studied today as a key text in the performance practice of that era. Leopold and his wife had 7 children, only 2 of those survived past infancy, who were Maria Anna, also nicknamed as Nano, who was born in 1751, and of course Wolfgang, who was born 5 years later in 1756. Leopold started to train his children in music when Nano reached the age of 7, and he started to teach her keyboard. He created a book, which is today known as Nano's Notebook, which contains various exercises for the keyboard, musical theory exercises, and also a collection of pieces. Many of these are anonymous, but it's thought that a lot of them are by Leopold. Some of them are by named composers of the time, like C.P. Bach, and it also contains the very first compositions by Wolfgang himself. In 1762, when Wolfgang was 6 and Nano was 11, Leopold took the whole Mozart family on a big tour of Europe for around about 3 years, and he visited most of the important centres and courts of the time, playing for nobility and wowing audiences with incredible talents of both of his children. Nano was, by all accounts, just as talented as Wolfgang, certainly as a performer, and she had top billing on some of the concerts. Sadly, a little bit later on, when she was a marriageable age, around about the age of 18, Nano's musical career came to an end, as it was frowned upon for women at that time, due to the social restrictions of the time, to have a career in music. She got married then, she continued to teach piano for a while, and apparently she also wrote some compositions which are mentioned in Wolfgang's letters, although sadly none of those survive. Being able to perform music at a high level as a young child is impressive enough, being able to compose music at that age is a whole different level of genius. Wolfgang started to compose music at the age of 5. We know this because the earliest compositions are contained in Nano's notebook and they are dated very specifically, and Nano also mentioned later on in her memoirs that Mozart started to compose at 5 and that Leopold would notate the music for him and write it down in the notebook. The very first piece that Wolfgang ever wrote, which is catalogued as K1, is a very short piece, only 10 bars long. I'm not going to play that because it doesn't fit on this instrument very well, and to be honest, the compositions he wrote even just a couple of months later I think are a bit more sophisticated. So I'm going to play 2 of those pieces from that Nano's notebook, both of which were written at the age of 6, and actually only just 6 because he was 6 in January of 1762, and these were written only a couple of months later on from that. I think that Wolfgang's playful nature as a young child of the age of 6 really comes across in these compositions. They're surprisingly well put together and sophisticated for a 6-year-old, of course, but also I think we can hear that kind of youthful character in there as well. After I play these 2 short pieces by Wolfgang Mozart written at the age of 6, I'm going to play a short piece by Leopold written at a similar time, so you can compare the two. I'm playing these pieces, which were originally written, of course, for keyboard or harpsichord, on this instrument, which is a German theorbo. Theorbo is a type of extended bass lute, which was invented around about 1600, but this particular type was used quite a lot later and throughout the 18th century. If you want to know more about this instrument, please check out this video, which explains it all in detail. Leopold notated the two pieces I just played and wrote them down in Nanel's notebook, as Wolfgang wasn't able to do that at the age of 6. This has led some people to suggest that perhaps Leopold composed those pieces, not Wolfgang, and passed them off as Wolfgang's to try and further his own interests. This would make some kind of sense, as he was in the process of organising the tours across Europe at this point, and he had a bit to gain by trying to make Wolfgang out as an incredible child genius, which of course he was. There are several reasons though I think that that is not the case, and I believe these were in fact by Wolfgang. Firstly, Nanel's notebook was never published, and it was only intended as a private teaching book for Nanel and then later for Wolfgang as well, so it was never seen by anyone else, so he would have no reason to pass it off as Wolfgang's if it wasn't, because nobody would ever actually see that book. The second reason is Nanel later corroborated everything that happened much later on in her life in her memoirs, and she said also that Wolfgang started to compose at the age of 5, that Leopold would notate them for him, and that he was already quite able to compose his own pieces independently at the keyboard at that age. The third reason I believe that these pieces are by Wolfgang and not Leopold is that Wolfgang clearly was a child genius. Later on in this same year, 1762, is when they started to do the tours of Europe, and countless people all across Europe saw Wolfgang play, and Nanel as well, and attested to what a genius he was at the same age, so we know that that was a fact. And the final reason is because I think, personally, the quality of music, even at the age of 6, is superior to what his father was writing. And just to demonstrate that, I'm going to play a short piece by Leopold Mozart, written at the same time, and you can compare that to the two pieces I played earlier, which were by Wolfgang at the age of 6. I think Wolfgang's work is of better quality, even at the age of 6. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think that these pieces were written by Wolfgang? Were they really written by a 6-year-old? Or were they written by Leopold and passed off as Wolfgang's work to try and benefit his own interests? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and there's plenty of other interesting stuff on this quadrupuntal channel with lots of loop content and Portuguese guitar, mandolin, all sorts of stuff on there, so please check it out, and I'll see you on the next video.